Welcome to Construction Trailblazers, the podcast that gets real about leading people, managing projects, and simplifying growth. I'm Samantha C. Prestidge, and I work with construction teams and the consultants who serve them who need to untangle back office chaos so they can have less firefighting and more traction. You can catch past episodes at constructiontrailblazers.com and find the practical strategies for building a business that runs smoother. All right, so today's guest is the super cool Joe Siewell. He's a construction manager and consultant that specializes in protecting subcontractors from risk, delay penalties, and financial exposure on large-scale projects. With deep field experience and a no BS approach, Joe bridges the gap between contracts, schedules, and day-to-day job site realities. He's not here to babysit project managers. He's here to keep builders out of trouble, defend their pay, and make sure no one steps into avoidable messes. From documentation systems to schedule risk analysis, Joe helps subs stay compliant, get paid, and finish projects strong. All right, Joe, hi. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for the everyday construction person who I'm sure they've heard of construction managers, but let's imagine that they haven't, give us a little insight into really what you do for your clients and how you're not just another consultant.
Okay, so for construction manager, I would use that term loosely for me, at least in the respect that we're talking about right now. I'm a little different in that the people that actually see impacts and things that happen on a day-to-day job, those are not project managers, those are not operations managers, those are not people in the trailer. Those are the guys on the ground. And that is a group of people that are well trained in what they do. They're builders. That ultimately they're all builders. What they don't get trained in, or quite frankly, in my past history, I've noticed that they don't even get schooled in how to communicate problems. They know how to communicate amongst themselves. They have a difficult time communicating to supervision or to others that something's impacting them. And where I step in and where I kind of fill a gap is I teach those guys in the field what it is that they should be looking for. It's sort of a forest for the trees type thing. What you're looking at, yes, it might be something that's normal, but are you sure it's normal? Let's look at it in a different way. Is this going to affect you in some fashion down the road? It's not just looking for problems. It is observing the project as a whole and assuming that at some point you might be needing to work in a certain area and you're not able to work in a certain area, and why is that? So it really is introducing a skill set to the field that I know that they don't get trained in. And that unfortunately is both the very best benefit to a claim situation, if you have the field guys that know what they're looking for, and also the very worst in a claim situation, because typically nothing's communicated to the office. No day-to-day impacts are communicated to the office. So the way I say that I am different is I take my field experience, I overlay that with a long history of a lot of office and operations experience, a lot of history with dealing with litigation and litigation prep. I combine all three of those things into a little magic sauce that I take to projects when people engage me, preferably in the beginning, sometimes in the middle. And ultimately, that creates a more smooth project flow, for lack of a better term. It it makes things go smoothly rather than abrupt stops and all of a sudden, oh my God, how do we deal with this? Or holy shit, they're pouring concrete and we should have been there a week ago. Well, wait a second, time out. What's the schedule say? What does the previous schedule say? I bring a different mindset and a different kind of look to a project, looking at it from a different angle. Uh, and I teach guys in the field to
It's
do that.
it's really like this triple threat trifecta of information that you're bringing into a project, which sounds invaluable. And so I want to touch on a few of the things you said. And when you started explaining that a lot of field guys don't have the skill sets, or they just don't know how to communicate problems. And not it's not that we're looking for problems, but we want to understand, where things could go wrong. And what I appreciate about that is I think sometimes the people that are good at finding the problems end up being like labeled as like a problem starter because they also don't know then the solutions to those things, but it's also just the way that they're communicating about issues in the first place. And so I'd love to kind of understand from your perspective, how are you finding these field guides? Like, how do they even frame problems? I'm guessing in some instances they're not even bringing it up at all. And then in other instances, they're just framing the issue maybe not in the way that the office or someone else is really going to hear and resonate with it. Can you break that down for me?
In a lot of circumstances, it they won't see a quote problem. It'll be, you may not see it's a problem. And that was my point of seeing the forest for the trees. You may not know that what you're looking at or what you're hearing or what you were just handed in a piece of paper could be a problem. We need to take that information and start teaching them to look at it a different way. You know, again, guys are builders. I mean, guys, women, everybody. Construction trade
Yeah.
craftspeople are builders. They're not necessarily negotiators. They're there to build a project. So they are very tunnel vision focused on getting that job done. And getting the job done is usually however it needs to happen, it'll happen. We're going to get it done. But that also brings in external issues potentially, that those are the types of things that I want guys on guard for. Like, hey, we just need to get this done. I'll take care of you. I'll write your T&M ticket tomorrow, or what have you. All those little red flags in and of themselves and an individual basis are very small and probably meaningless. But unless you start keeping track of all those little things, those eventually become an actual thing that you decide, holy God, how did we get here? What happened? And we were just fine 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
Well, you're not now. Um, so I don't know if that answered that question or not.
It does. It does. And what's so interesting is it really brings to light the complexities of the construction world. I think like compared to almost every other industry, construction is that okay, we've got to have people that can just execute on work. We also have to have those detail oriented people. We also have to know how to deal with people in general. We're not just building shit, we're dealing with people. And the only other industry I can see being as complicated as construction is healthcare, and that's probably more or equally regulated as the construction world, but it really highlights how valuable your perspective is when you come into a project. Now, I know that you work primarily or completely with subs, and you've got some strong opinions about GCs. So I want to dig into that a little bit. Give me your perspective of GCs, and if we were to go on like we're focused on solutions route, what's something that you would want GCs to know or to realize about subcontractors?
Well, starting with the reason I deal really only with subcontractors, I'm trying to think in my head. I don't deal with a GC. I have one client that is a owner's rep for a real large builder in California. I don't deal with GCs. The reason is general contractors are typically either an owner's rep, or they're basically there to protect the owner and to build a project for them. Subcontractors have to deal with far more problems than the GC, at least in my opinion. They deal with two things. They deal with their subcontract. They deal with the flow down from the prime contract. So they're dealing with the GC's contract issues. They're also dealing with their own subcontract issues. They are the last person on the project. Everything flows down to the subcontractor. They're the ones that's visible. So they are the ones that need to be protected. They're also the ones that will bend over backwards for anybody and any GC to just get it done. Let's get it done. I'll take care of you on the next one. The most fantastic etched in marble load of bullshit that can ever be created is, I'll take care of you on the next one. No, take care of me on this one. I'll take care of you on the next one. And that's why I defend subcontractors. And frankly, they're not contract savvy. They don't have their own construction attorneys that we know. Um, they do need protection. They may not know it, but they do. They can get a lot out of a little bit of third party oversight over something that frankly gets ignored. And when a project begins, everything's real smooth and happy. Everybody's happy, high five, lunches, everything. Well, 6 months into a year long job, that Hannah curve is up here. Everybody's busy. Everybody. Documentation stops. Conversations get more terse. Communication becomes more fragmented, and it everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong at the busiest part of the job. And subcontractors are just not built to deal with that. They don't have the bandwidth. So that's why
Yeah.
I think I feel a good void there. That is my only focus, is dealing with all those things that I see and hear. I monitor email. I have communications with field, on a daily basis on certain projects. So I hear the quote bad stuff before it gets to be so bad that it's an actual financial problem for the subs.
You're really the person like they can trust, like you've got their back, like they can breathe a little bit easier. They're still busy as all hell, but they can breathe slightly easier because they know Joe's got their back. Now, you made a comment before that preferably you come in the beginning of a project, but oftentimes it's in that messy middle of like when everyone's busy and like, okay, now things are starting to get into trouble. I'd love to understand. We don't have to name any names here, but can you give me some insight into a project that you came in during the messy middle and kind of how you're able to guide them to salvation and help them avoid utter chaos?
Well, there's one, and I don't know that I've told you about this one. Fairly recently, I was completely unaware of a relationship that my client had, and I had
Wait, what kind of, we got to pause because I need context to
when I
understand. What were you talking
when I
like
say,
intimate relationships?
Lord, I hope not. No, just construct or a contract to contract, company to company, just an intertwined
Okay,
relationship I wasn't aware of. Um,
got
I get a phone call literally on a Saturday morning at 5 o'clock Central Time, AM, from a client that, oh my God, we need you to go solve this problem. Here's 5 minutes of background. Now go fix my problem. It's fine. This is a very good client, so I'm like, okay, I'm on it. We'll figure it out. Well, I arrived to a project, and after a little bit of digging, I realized that this client owns several different companies. 6 companies that they own, 4 of them were on this project. I'm dealing with one of them. So it is a big deal liquidated damages delay claim potential. The GC is crawling all over all of these subs, and I'm trying to extricate one subcontractor out of a group of 6 when 4 of those are their own company without causing damage to the other 4. Ultimately, and this is why GCs don't generally like me, is I can't paint the picture that it's the other subcontractor's fault. I can't claim disruption on 2 or 3 other subcontractors for my client. Those contractors are my client too. They didn't tell me this. However, after about 2 weeks of really, really digging through past schedules and meeting minutes, and there was actually one FOIA request. It's a public works job. So after a lot of digging, we were able to successfully mitigate my client and all 4 of the others' culpability in this project, only because the general contractor was just so poorly executing and not following their contract, not notifying, not documenting, not taking timestamp photos, not doing all the things that they make us do, us meaning subcontractors. So the way I got them out of that was placing the direct blame back on the general contractor. All of them got out of that okay. My prime client has a little bit less than $1.7 million check being written to him. I mean, that's true story. They went from facing liquidated damages to they're getting some money back for the impacts that they sustain. So I would say out of all my career, that was the most stressful and successful and rewarding project I've had. So that there's one copy that I
Yeah.
do have. I will not work for more than one subcontractor on a project. That defeats the purpose because I will work for you on a project. If you and another person are on that project, I won't work for that other person. It's only one person. So just always know that. Everybody's listening, just know that I will only work for you and I become you.
Yeah, it's like a pull your hair out, but it's also a kick-ass story. Like that's an amazing case study and it just goes to show like your dedication with working with a client and that's a fair amount of constraints of like it you know what maybe because I like to binge watch TV shows and I just started binge watching Scandal again. So anyone that's watched Scandal, it's all about like a political fixer. And they believe anything can be fixed, right? And they're given all these boundaries and constraints of like you can't fix it in this way because it'll upset this client or this relationship or something. And that's the role that you have to play in of like I need a successful outcome, but they're putting up boundaries and all these walls around me. Like, what is the way through? So, wow. Okay. So then on the flip side of that, what typically happens when a client does have the amazing foresight to bring you in at the beginning of a project? And also give our listeners some clarity into what kind of project is like their signal, like, oh, yeah, like we need to bring Joe in for this for sure, right from day one.
Well, two big ones. If you have a contract that you've unfortunately signed that have liquidated damages in it or consequential damages, those are the absolute worst. Those are damages that are a consequence to what you did. Um, the next one would be, is it a very large contractor that you may have thought you underbid the project on? Do you have a lot of exposure there? That's when I get into a little bit of a different mode of preemptively looking for all the things that we really need to keep track of and how to document them, how to communicate them, who we communicate that to. That's when I get into making some playbooks on this is how we're going to prosecute this job. This is how we are going to move from A to B. This is how we're going to function day to day. This is how we're going to write email. This is who we're going to talk to. Those are the biggest ones. And frankly, the other, that would be in before the job starts. Absolutely. Get me involved in the planning process because again, I'm a superintendent for years and years and years. Logistics is a thing and I can help in other aspects, not just solve the problem, but I can help you avoid it in the first place.
So you'll come in at like that estimating stage then as well to help evaluate like if this is a good estimate or like what do you mean by in that kind of pre-planning
And
process?
not during the estimating phase. It would be post signature
Mm,
on the contract. It would basically be, hey, we have a high profile or a big deal job that we're going to do.
mm.
Let's figure out how to do this effectively within the baseline schedule. We have this roadmap. How do we build what we need to build with this map? This is the only map we have. So how are we going to do this? Where are going to be some of the potential pitfalls? Let's start mapping those out now. And that way, we may not need to use those cards right now. We need to know we have them in the deck.
So you said something interesting a little bit ago that you'll create a
Mhm.
playbook. And we've talked about that a little bit before, so I want our listeners to kind of hear about this. Really explain what do you mean by playbook? What's the value of it? And like how do you get people to actually look at this playbook?
Well, it's project specific and client specific. They generally, for the most part, will have sort of three sections. One will be what are your obligations day to day? Your obligations to your own company. What kind of notification do you do job journals? Do you do inspections, et cetera? The basic A and B type stuff. But I take that a step further is how are we supposed to communicate those to the general contractor? What are their requirements? Where do we send them to? What's supposed to be in those documents? And then the third one is when things start to go south, or if you have an impact, or if you observe something, what is the formal notification process? What documentation does the field need to communicate and give to our office? What do they need? So those playbooks are basically just flip through them. What's your situation? One of them might be I'm in an area that I'm scheduled to be in today, and I can't work. Okay, well, why? Go to your playbook. You have a disruption, or you have a delay, or you have an impact. You have a subcontractor in your way, and it will basically pull out of the contract and out of the specifications how to handle each one of those circumstances. So there's not confusion on how we do it. You'll have exactly what you need to document and communicate, and it won't be incorrect, and it won't be something that's imagined, or it won't be left up to the individual person to think about how to do it. It very, very specific. It's very small. It's not a book. It's not a binder. It's just a little booklet. I've had a lot of really happy clients with that. That it's very simple. That super straightforward. No big words. Just this is what you do when this happens, and that
Yeah.
does two things. it it eliminates the concern of the field that they might be hurting somebody's feelings. And I say that because I know it happens. Everybody has well, we work with these guys for a long time. I've known this guy forever. I really feel bad by telling him that, you're impacting us. Well, the contract is for both of us. It's not just for them. And I don't just get that out to hit people in the head with it when the job's over. That's our playbook. That is how we're supposed to build this job. I'm sorry, Mr. General Contractor. Here is your delay notice. Here's where it says in the contract. I'm only following the contract that we signed. So it makes it a little bit easier for the field to swallow that, as well as the project management. I build one for the project managers too, that are this very, very specific on notification requirements and what you need to say and when. So that would be my playbook, and it really varies by project and by what point in the project I'm brought in to. If that's the very beginning, it's easy. If this is, we're already bleeding to death, playbook's going to be a little different. It's gonna we're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
attack things a little differently. And as the project progresses, that same book, it gets progressively more aggressive. That if it's the beginning,
Really.
because the beginning you have a lot of runway. If it's the middle, that's when everybody's busy, everybody's nerves are frazzled. Okay, this impacted us. I appreciate the fact that you're upset, or that this affects you in some fashion, but you are causing me financial distress. And if it gets to the very end of the project, there's a whole nother little section that this is okay. Now I'm going to CC your bonding company, and who's your surety? I'm going to start copying them. That's for the project managers to do. But these are all really things that project managers and ops managers should do. They don't. They say they do. They're full of shit. They just don't. Not effectively, in my opinion. And they don't have somebody purely dedicated to doing nothing but that. And that is, so to speak, of keeping them out of trouble.
Do you feel like they don't typically do it because they're just so at capacity, or like they just don't know what they're looking for or how to do it, or why really are they falling short in this super critical area of a project?
It, Now, this geography of the country changes a little bit. Different areas of the country do things a little differently. I would say the very first one is they don't want to offend the people they work with. I mean, they work and live in that area. They may have worked with people for a very long time. So you have to get over that hurdle. The second one is definitely time. When everybody's busy, like I just said, there's not a lot of time to dedicate to making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and all the things that like Megan would do. And um, there also is a huge gap in training. They It's not something that gets trained. It just is not. It's boring. It is tedious to go through a lot of these things. So it's a combination of three different things. So those three things will basically kill any adversarial relationship that you might have with a GC. They're going to find three reasons why
Yeah.
they're not going to do it. Um, and
Mm.
I basically make it more palatable. That way they can say, hey, the consultant gave me this. This is what he said. I'm fine with
It's not me.
it.
It's in the book, you know?
It's
For our listeners that don't know who Megan is, so that's Megan Shapiro. She's an amazing contract coach. She's also a lawyer out in California that focuses on working with subs, but she also trains people on how to really look at a contract and understand all those clauses. So we'll link her LinkedIn in the show notes if you want to learn more about her there. Now, it's interesting with the offending people. I'm curious, Joe, if after the field guys and managers and whomever in the client's company has worked with you through a project, do you feel like at the end of that project they kind of have better conflict resolution skills, or like they don't seem as conflict averse after working with you? Like, is that a byproduct or symptom of doing a project with you?
100% of the time. Without exception, I've never left a project that, I mean, they're not all successful. I don't have a magic bullet. I'd be living somewhere not where I'm at now. Um, it, they, it does help them because they learn how to communicate what's going on, but not in a way that creates havoc. They use fact. It's fact-based discussion. It's not, you backed into my truck or you ran over my pipe or you have some other issue going on. No, it's chapter and verse contract. I'm obligated to do this because you did X, Y, and Z. Sorry. It solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It's very quick, very fast, and new field guys are unfortunately the worst at not being able to say no. So general contractors or superintendents, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Well, instead of having to look them in the eye going no, they at least have a reason after I engage them a little bit and teach them how to say no, but tell them why you're saying no. And it dissolves the problem immediately.
That is understanding the why behind something is a universal strategy for any conflict, change management, etc. If someone understands why, then it's so much easier for them to accept whatever the answer or whatever the change is. And what I also appreciate about your playbooks that you said of like you don't use big words. And what I love about that is like in general, pretty much everyone that we're going to work with is has some competency, right? They're smart in some way, but I love when stuff is just like dumb it down. Like even it's like why IKEA instructions are so easy, right? It's dumbed down, it's proofed for stupid, and that's what I think playbooks and processes need to do.
Mhm.
Like I respect that you're competent. In the event that we have someone that knows absolutely nothing, here is the resource that is proofed for dumb that you can use.
It's a checklist. It's just a checklist. You don't get on a plane, that plane doesn't
Mm,
start moving until there's a checklist done every time.
mm,
So why not use a checklist to solve all the problems? It's very simple. Um, and it doesn't take
yeah.
long to have it become a very, very good habit. And that's usually the feedback I'll get from a project when it's done is the clarity of communication between the field to the office. And then the same thing works from the office to the general contractor to the owner. They have somebody and they have something to point to. This is what we're supposed to do. I appreciate you don't like it. Sorry. Go on the internet and
Yeah.
complain. But this is the contract we signed.
Which is like you said, it's hard to do the first bit. It's hard to say no. It's hard to say like this is what the contract says without feeling a little like the douche police or something. But over time earns you some respect and it earns some big brownie points with the GC. Like they can come and know like okay, this person like yeah, they hold me to this boundary or they hold me to this legal obligation, but I know that they know their shit and there's respect in the game there. Now, I'm also curious because some of the things that you're saying, like okay, you know how to bring up problems. You now have like a checklist on what to do. A big factor of this is also some accountability. Now, I know that they've got you in their back pocket a bit nagging, but I guess, just because accountability is such a big buzzword for a lot of companies, especially in construction, how are you cultivating accountability of like, yep, we gave you a playbook and like now you have to really stick to it?
You know, it's difficult. It really is. And I had this conversation an hour ago. But I'm having to change the way I approach a project. And I told the operations manager why I was going to do it. And it was precisely because of that, that I've given you three different instances in the last 2 weeks that you should have sent a letter. I write the letters for you. I don't put my name on them. I ghostwrite them. Um, but I wrote you three letters for three distinct different things. You didn't do any of the three. So at that point in time, I will generally communicate to whoever my contact person is, like, hey, this has happened 3 times. Your local crew is not doing what I've asked them to do. They're not sending any type of notification whatsoever. So we're at the point that I need to tell you I'm not able to help you unless you have you help yourself. You have to help yourself. I can't do all this for you. And I will generally go back to why they brought me there in the first place. Like, listen, if you don't do this, those liquidated damages that you didn't want to pay $50,000 a day for, those are going to come back and haunt you. And I'm not going to be able to do anything for you. So you've engaged me, you've paid me a tidy sum of money. I'm telling you how to approach this, and you're not doing it. So I will, if you continue, I will have to just we'll break up. I mean, I'll give you the termination. I do terminate clients, sometimes relatively short, but I'm not going to go down with your ship. You can listen if you don't
Mm.
like what I'm telling you. It's fine, but you're going to, the havoc's going to fall upon you, and I can't help you. So that's really the only way I can say I put accountability on them is I'm there for one reason only. And if they're not taking
Yeah.
what I'm advising them to do seriously, then I can't help you.
Well, especially when you make it so easy for them. You're like, here is the thing to do, and here's also the letter or the fulfillment of the thing. All you have to do is send it along.
Put a
And if they're
stamp
so
on it and
conflict
mail
averse
it.
that they can't even like, oh, that's all you gotta do, right?
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, it's almost like tough love, right? I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow. But again, that goes back to like you are not conflict averse. You know the strong boundaries and policies that you have for your own work. And if they're not gonna hold up their end of the deal, then you're gonna show them what it looks like to say this is the end of it, right? Okay. So we've touched on a few different things. Communicating problems, being able to spot problems, dumbing it down with field playbooks and all of those things. If there was a sub that's listening and they're like, you know what, I'm not quite ready to bring Joe into something, but I know that my projects could be better. I just feel this bumpiness. What would your piece of advice be for them?
At least just book a phone call with me. I mean, I'll talk to you for free for 15 or 20 minutes. Just call me, and hit me with your concern, or maybe what would you do if? I have no problem answering those questions. Um, there's a lot of times that people will, just like me, sometimes you don't really know what you do. What is exactly do you do? Um, I can listen to what their problem is. I can probably give them a couple of real easy solutions that, if they do, great. If they don't, fine too. But just reach out and give me a call. You'd be surprised that there's a lot of things I could probably help subcontractors with that they may think they've got a handle on. You don't. Um, but just give me a call and let's talk about it. And I say you don't because I've been a subcontractor. I know these things get left by the wayside. They just do. So let me, yeah,
Yeah.
just give me a call. I'll talk to you. Absolutely.
You're able to give that tough love because you're speaking from experience. You've been in the weeds and in those problems
Yes.
positions. All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been, I think, extremely insightful and valuable. So thanks for giving us some wisdom today and for hopping on the episode.
This is fantastic. I had a great time. Thank you, Sam.